please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, first up, let's get started with the market action of the day. The bulls could not find their gears after the long weekend. The Nifty ended the day 100 points in the red, with 42 out of the 50 stocks closing with losses. The Sensex fell for the fourth day, plunging more than 300 points to slip below its 100-day moving average. Now, it was the same story for the Nifty Bank as well, as the mid-caps, with both those indices ending in the red. IT stocks were the only ones in the green today. Now, Trump's move to import 25% tariffs on steel imports and 10% on aluminium imports hurt the metal stocks in India. Hindalco, for instance, closed down almost 5%. Tata Steel ended the day close to 3% lower. SAIL closed over 3.5% in the red, while Vedanta was down over 2.5%. Let's bring in our in-house steel expert, Nigel D'Souza, to give us a quick analysis on what this means on a metal sector. Nigel, how has this move impacted the Indian markets from a stock perspective?
Well, a 25% tariff is what is proposed on steel imports into the United States, while for aluminium, that proposed tariff rate is approximately 10%. Let's focus on the steel bit first. Now, the United States is a net importer to the tune of around 25 to 26 million tons of steel, and bulk of the imports coming from Canada, the United Kingdom, as well as Brazil. From the Asian markets, well, China as well as South Korea, they account for nearly around 4.5 million tons odd. Well, in terms of India, India exports only around 600 to around 700,000 tons, and that would account for only around 2% of the total imports into the United States. So that's a rather small number. HSBC says that they expect a very minimal impact on domestic steel producers in India. Well, what they're saying is that, in fact, keep an eye out on global prices, because if that corrects, owing to those exports that normally were going to the United States, if they find their way into other markets, that's what could put pressure on the global steel prices and in turn impact the EBITDA numbers in FY19 itself. Moving to the aluminium bit then, remember, in terms of the US market, bulk of the aluminium requirement is met via imports, close to around 90-91% odd, and importantly, the capacity utilization levels of various aluminium companies, that's drifted down to around 40%. So the aim is to increase these capacity utilization levels as well. Canada accounts for nearly around 43% of the imports into the United States, and Hindalco obviously will be a stock that would be in focus. Now, that stock ended down in today's trading session. Jefferies, remember, they have given us some numbers. They're saying out of the total EBITDA of Novelis, nearly around 39% comes in from the US market. But they're also saying that bulk of the raw material requirement as well comes in from Canada, and that wouldn't be very, very good news if there's a blanket ban in terms of, or a blanket tariff that's levied on all imports coming into the United States. So we'll have to keep an eye out on that factor. Remember, in terms of the domestic operations as well, if the LME prices do fall, then close to around 50% of Hindalco's current production is exported, and that wouldn't be very good news, because falling LME prices would impact the domestic upstream operations.
Okay, Nigel, thanks for putting that into perspective. So that's the impact on metal stocks, but the fears of a trade war have also spooked Wall Street. So the Dow, for instance, opened about 100 points lower in the red. The S&P 500 is currently trading about 0.3% lower, while the Nasdaq is also mildly in the red. You can see the S&P 500 on your screens. But back home, the government's decision to levy a higher duty on the import of completely knocked down products hasn't really gone down well with Ducati and Triumph. So these two global motorcycle manufacturers have now written to the government seeking to reverse the decision. They are not alone. We learned that Volkswagen, Ford Motors, among others, is also likely to follow suit. A completely knocked down vehicle is essentially one which is imported or exported in parts and not as one assembled unit. Ron Banerjee is here with more details. Ron, what are you picking up from your sources?
Well, at this point in time, what we know is that the different duty hike that was announced by the government has hurt and affected different automakers in different ways. So as far as the CKD duty hike is concerned, which has gone up from 10% to 15%, now that has rankled some of the premium motorcycle players in the country. Ducati and Triumph motorcycles, remember Triumph is UK based. They also have an alliance with Bajaj Auto in India. They have now taken up the matter with the government, pretty much arguing that that the decision whether to manufacture bottom up will be determined on the basis of the volumes and not necessarily on the duty and the tariff structure. And that is why they feel that very recently Triumph had started assembling products, and they feel this is a bit of a setback. Apart from them, some of the other luxury car makers, Audi, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, they also have a fair amount of locally assembled cars that they do. There they feel that this hike in the CKD duties has to be seen in the context of the GST cess hike that was announced in cess in September, and they feel together it has amounted to a double whammy for the manufacturers, and they have now asked SIAM as the auto industry body to take that up officially with the government. Apart from the luxury players, as far as some of the volume manufacturers are concerned, they have also been impacted this time because of the duty hike announced on certain auto components, which has gone up from 7.5% to as much as 15%. So there's been a double hike. And that is why what we understand is that Ford and Volkswagen have taken this up and will be writing to the government shortly. While Ford and Volkswagen may have limited volumes, but remember, these are large auto companies. One is based in Germany, the other is based in the US. And in this current environment, clearly this does not augur well. We'll of course have to wait and watch what this means, whether this really leads to any kind of revision, if at all, on part of the government.
Okay, fair enough, Ram. Thanks for taking us through that. Let's move on to another big story today. And this is an exclusive interview. We are interested in Essar Steel and Essar Steel only. That's the word coming in from Executive Vice President of ArcelorMittal. Speaking exclusively to CNBC TV18 from Belgium, Brian Arhanha told CNBC TV18's Anshu Sharma that the company is confident that it is compliant with all the conditions laid down by the lenders to Essar Steel.
We've put in a bid for Essar. It's our main focus in terms of the distressed assets that we've looked at. So we are focused on that one and hoping it will turn out well for us.
How much time do you think you'll take to turn around the Essar Steel's Hazira plant?
I think turning it around is probably one way of putting it, but to take it to its nearer to its nameplate potential is probably a better way to put it. It's been running in a near bankruptcy mode for quite some period of time, so the previous management was constrained in what they could do. We will be free of those constraints and can probably within a year's time show significant progress, and within 2 years, much more progress than the current level of performance of the plant.
Okay, we will of course be following that story, and for now the Essar Steel COC, that is the creditors meeting, has been delayed. We'll take a quick break, though. Up next, sparks fly as Parliament reconvenes for the budget session of Parliament. Both houses adjourn for the day. Why? We'll tell you after the break. Welcome back onto the big telecom story of the day. In what comes as some relief to Bharti Airtel as well as Idea Cellular, the Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal, or the TDSAT, has agreed to hear their plea against the telecom regulator's predatory pricing order. Now, the TDSAT has issued a notice to the TRAI and has asked the regulatory authority to respond to the issues raised by Bharti Airtel and Idea. Vodafone may also join this petition. Ashmit Kumar, who has been tracking this, is here with the details. Ashmit, take us through what the TDSAT has said. The fact is that this has just been admitted, but that in itself is a win for them.
Well, indeed, as confirmed to CNBC TV18 at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona by Sunil Bharti Mittal, Bharti and as well as Idea have taken recourse to legal remedies against the predatory pricing order of the telecom watchdog, that's the TRAI, and have moved the TDSAT. Not just that, today was the first day of the hearing, and after initial hearings, TDSAT number 1 has agreed to hear the application, and number 2, importantly, has issued a notice to the TRAI to come back with their response on the concerns that have been raised by the telcos in question. That's Bharti as well as Idea. What's also important to mention is that we spoke to various lawyers, and from the looks of it, Vodafone is also likely to join the fray, and they too are likely to voice their concerns against the predatory pricing order of TRAI. Now, it has all the makings of a litigious issue here. The concerns that have been raised by telcos happens to be over the definition of which telcos qualify as a significant market player or an SMP. Now, under the latest order that has come out, that TRAI has come out with, SMP is defined as a telecom operator that has a market share or in terms of subscribers or revenue of greater than 30%. What the telcos' contention is, what the incumbent telcos, that's Bharti and Idea, what their contention essentially is that it discounts, this new definition discounts factors such as traffic, such as data, such as switching capacity, and that this gives a skewed picture according to them, and that this criteria that has now been laid down by TRAI, number 1, has been done in a non-transparent manner, and number 2, it skews the balance in favor of a few new telcos. That's the concern that they have been voicing. As per them, it allows new telcos to come out with aggressive pricing mechanisms while not allowing the incumbents the same luxury that they cannot come out with aggressive pricing formula given their market share now. Now, that's the concern that has been expressed. Notice has been issued. TRAI will have to come back with their reply. The hearing is next slated for April 17th. Back to you.
Okay, so quite some time till we get some closure on that development. Thanks, Ashmit, for taking us through that. Now, let's get to the big political story of the day. It has, in fact, been a frantic start to the week with some rapid political developments. So, number one, the impact of the recently concluded elections in the northeast. The BJP has made some serious inroads there by winning the state of Tripura comfortably. The party has also turned kingmaker in Nagaland. Number two, there are various stress points which are threatening to derail the second half of the budget session, namely the Nirav Modi scandal, Karti Chidambaram's arrest and the Kaveri water dispute. And the chatter for a third front revival is getting louder. Telangana Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao called for a non-BJP, non-Congress alliance over the weekend. Mamata Banerjee, Asauddin Owaisi, Jagan Mohan Reddy and Ajit Jogi have already voiced their support. So, how feasible is the non-Congress, non-BJP federal third front? A special conversation with Derek O'Brien of the Tribunal Congress coming up on India Business Hour. Apart from political drama, here's the big drama that unfolded in the wee hours of the morning. Hollywood's biggest awards, the Oscars, were announced early this morning. The Shape of Water bagged the Oscar for the Best Picture. CNBC's Landon Dowdy joins in with the highlights of the 90th edition of the awards. Landon, take away and take us through all the action.
Last night's 90th Academy Awards, skidding between a silly and serious tone of Me Too moments. The big winners of the night, as you mentioned, The Shape of Water nabbing Best Picture, Gary Oldman winning Best Actor for his performance in Darkest Hour, and Frances McDormand winning the Oscar for Best Actress thanks to her performance in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, where she thanked every single person in the building before she asked all of the female nominees in the room to stand, and then finished with a reference to diversity in film contracts. And that continued when 3 of Harvey Weinstein's accusers took the stage and introduced a segment highlighting the importance of diversity in film. Disney making Kobe Bryant an Oscar winner for Dear Basketball. Disney also marking its 6th straight win in the animated feature category with Pixar's Coco. And then a surprise one, guys, Netflix grabbing the golden statue for Best Documentary for Icarus.
Okay, Landon, thanks for taking us through a quick capsule of that. But with that, we're completely out of time with this edition of What's Hot. Many thanks for watching this show. Up next is Donald Trump's trade stance, spooking markets. Sensex turns negative for 2018, plunges more than 3 points in trade, and Nifty falls 100 points. 42 Nifty stocks end in the red. All the action from the Lal Street on markets today. Talk back, and we'll be back in 30 minutes with India Business Hour and the top stories of the day. Don't go anywhere.